Okay, let's get started here. This is going to be a replacement video for the last one I did, step 3, creating activities. The audio levels on that video were fairly low, so it was probably hard to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the steps of creating an activity in LiveText Via again. So we'll start at the beginning here, and again, you'll be using your UH email addresses. So you're going to put in your username at hawaii.edu. Again, I'm using my fake instructor account here, so it'll look a little different from what you guys have to type in. Once you log in, as I talked about in the other two videos, you land on your in progress feed, and you're going to start seeing a list of courses appear in the center part of this page. So wait, let me get my highlighter tool here. So we see here we have one course listed here, and then we have another course listed here. Now if you look at the step 2 video I did last week or last weekend, you may notice that they don't look the same anymore. This page doesn't look the same anymore. That's just because I've been doing some training this week, and I've actually incorporated some activities in these courses. So it's now showing that there's an open activity and someone is awaiting assessment. So kind of ignore that part. Do remember when you log in, you land here on the in progress tab, and you're going to see your courses listed again. Spring 17 courses may be listed at the bottom. Your fall 17 courses should be listed at the top there. Okay, let me get on. So what I'm going to do now is to click on a course. So we're going to click here, and it's going to take us into that course. And then we're going to create an activity using the rubric and using the template that we've already created. So let me get rid of this highlighter tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this top Links 101 42020 course. When I do that, what you see, what you will see when you first go in is you won't see all of these activities listed here if you've never created one. There'll be some text here describing what an activity is, and there may be some background graphics on this side, but essentially it's a blank screen. There's nothing here, there's no activities here because you haven't created them or created any yet. So when you're ready, you create your rubric, you create your template. We're now going to go over here to click on create activity. So let me get my mouse pointer back again. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create activity. And now you see that we have our title field, and we also have our template field. And so we have to provide information here. So in the title field, you should be giving this a fairly descriptive title that again sort of reminds you what this assignment or activity is for. So I'm just going to use Links 101, our fictitious course, CSLO final assessment. When I click on the drop down now, because I have already published, and this may look different from the last video too. When I last did the video, I didn't have all of these published rubrics. Now that they're published, now that I've created more templates and not published them, but saved them, I see a longer list to choose from, or longer list to choose from. I'm going to use that one that in that step 2 video I created. This is the one we would have seen, or you would have saw in that video. So I'm going to select it. So now we see the template there. And the next thing you're going to have to select is who your assessee is. Now, this should already be set up there. The only roles you'll see in a class are is student right now. So you shouldn't see anything else there. If you are faced with several choices, select student, because that's who you're going to be assessing with this activity. Um, you don't have to worry too much about this visible date and time. And that's because we don't necessarily have to worry about when students are going to be seeing this, because currently most of our students don't have access to the system. This checkbox here, you can just leave it. You are requiring this as part of your assessment, so you might as well just leave it as required. Once everything is set, you can come up here and there's two options. One is to save, one is to publish. Now, like our rubrics, you should be fairly certain that you're happy with this assignment before you go ahead and publish. So what I've been telling people is to actually save first. When you click on save, you notice that that assignment now appears, or that activity now appears right up over here in our feed. When you click on it, it brings you back to this. It actually takes you into what you will see when you actually publish this and start using it for your students' assessment. Right now, you don't see much in terms of your student roster, right? Because you won't see your student roster until you actually publish this activity. What it does tell you is some information up here. We're using this template, so it's just reminding you. And it shows you the visibility date, again, which we're not going to tinker with. When you're fairly certain that you're okay, and this is the activity that you want and the way it's set up is correct, you can go ahead and click on publish right down here. And when you do that, it actually takes you back to this that same screen where we started building the activity. And we're going to go ahead and slide up to the upper right here and now click on publish. So let's go ahead and do that. Once you publish an activity, one thing you'll notice is that the published option has been grayed out because we've already published it. You'll also notice that we now have this ring graph showing you the status of your assessment for this activity. This course only has one student enrolled, so it's showing you here's your one student awaiting assessment, and so far none of them have been done. Now, also notice up here in the upper right that you can still at this point delete this activity if you are certain you don't want to use it anymore. Once you click on the activity and go inside and you start clicking on your students to begin the assessment process, as soon as you do that, you will no longer be able to delete. So just keep that in mind. This is your one last opportunity to delete this assignment before before you actually start using it, right? So I'm going to go back here and take my mouse pointer back up. So I'm going to click on the course. And now, because it's published, you actually see your students listed here. In this case, there's only one again. If you had multiple students, they would just be listed from top to bottom like that. Some things to note. At this point, because we're using the observational workflow, there's only two states that this assignment can be in. It's awaiting assessment, and when you're finished doing the assessment, it'll slide over to done. So now how do you actually use the rubric and template that you created? Fairly simple. Let me just get my mouse pointer back. So I'm going to click on the student name, and you can click on anywhere along that row. I'm going to click on that student. The activity will open. It will incorporate my rubric. You remember that rubric that we created and published? It incorporates the template that actually has this rubric attached to it. So it is now ready, or you can now use this to assess your students. So if I say this guy he meets SLO1, and he meets SLO2, I can just select those boxes. If I choose to leave comments, I can type comments here. Once you're done filling this out, you can go ahead and click on submit. Notice now that when you click submit, the student status changes from awaiting assessment to done, and it'll tell you by whom. Clearly it's you, right? You as the instructor submitted an assessment on this day. Now, if you noticed earlier when we went in there, uh, up on the top right, you had the submit button and there was a save too. If you weren't certain that you wanted to like formally submit that assessment, you could actually have saved it as a draft and then gone back and later submitting it. If you ever submit an assessment and you change your mind, you notice that there is this ability to undo an assessment. So let me just show you how that works. I'm going to get my mouse pointer back, slide over here, click on undo, and you notice now our student status has changed from done and has come back to awaiting assessment. So now I can go in there and make alterations if I need to. So I'm going to select NA for this CSLO2. And by the way, people ask, when should you use NA? And this NA column was something that we didn't create in our rubric. LiveText automatically puts it in there. And that means not assessed. If for whatever reason you determine that you cannot assess this student in terms of this element, in this case CSLO2, you have the ability to choose not assessed, which is different from saying a student has not met a standard. All it means is that you're not assessing that student, so it doesn't become part of the assessment database. When should you use it? That's sort of I guess, a larger philosophical question. Personally, I feel like if you have a student who was in the course and maybe didn't submit all the major work, maybe at that point you could argue that you cannot assess that student because you don't have any assignments, artifacts, or projects or anything to make a determination whether that student's meeting that SLO or not. If you have a student who registered and never attended, maybe that's a good option to choose not assessed. If you have a student who attends the entire semester and then, they're just not performing well, in that case, you probably don't want to use not assessed. In that case, maybe that student doesn't meet the particular outcome that you're looking at. So I'm just pointing it out. You do have the ability to not assess, and it's not something that you have to do sort of all or none. You can individually say, in this row of this rubric, I'm not assessing the student here. So just keep that in mind. Again, if we slide back up here, you notice now we have, and this is the same thing when you first do an assessment. If you're ready to submit, you can click submit. If you're unclear whether you should submit that assessment at that time, you can always just save it. And let me just show you what that looks like. So if I click on save, you notice the student is still awaiting assessment and they're not done. However, when I click on this student name again, it caches everything I did. So it remembers I put in meets up here. It remembers that I put in NA here. It remembers the notes that I had here. At this point, if I'm ready to submit, I can now click on submit on the upper right-hand side of the page. And at this point, the student now goes from awaiting assessment till done or to done. Okay, so that is the quick and dirty how you close or you end the process of creating an assessment activity in LiveText Via. I apologize for the delay on this redo for this video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And good luck and happy holidays, everybody.